Greg, it's great to have you at Celtic. Welcome along to the club. How do you feel?
Delighted.
With the news now confirmed that Greg Taylor has left Celtic for a move to Greece, I've decided to take a look back at his 6-year spell at the club. Often singled out by fans for unimpressive performances in big games, Taylor is a divisive figure amongst the support. Despite so frequently being on the receiving end of much criticism, multiple managers placed their trust in Taylor ahead of numerous other options in the same position, and at one point, he was considered a key player in the Celtic team. Was the criticism over the top, or was Greg Taylor not good enough to justify the amount of game time he got at the club?
Greg, congratulations on your new deal. You're the latest member of the squad to be signed up.
Yeah, it's good to be signed up eventually. It's been good.
Taylor arrived at Celtic Park in a £3 million move for Kilmarnock on transfer deadline day in September 2019. There was a problem for Taylor, as there would have been for anybody else for that matter, right away. Celtic had just sold star player and major fan favourite Kieran Tierney to Arsenal for £25 million. Any replacement was going to struggle to fill those boots and was always going to arrive for just a fraction of the transfer fee Celtic received for Tierney, so automatically they would be viewed as a cheap alternative. However, Taylor wasn't even necessarily signed to be the first choice left back, as Celtic signed another player for the same position in that 2019 summer transfer window, Boli Bolingoli.
I think I love green and white. I think that's why I'm staying this colour and better challenge also.
The pacey left back had arrived from Rapid Vienna for the same £3 million fee as Taylor, and was initially manager Neil Lennon's first choice in the left back role. Quickly though, Bolingoli failed to impress, and Taylor's game time increased as the campaign went on. Taylor ended his first season with a league title and League Cup to his name, before COVID brought the world to a halt in March 2020. When football restarted several months later, clubs were under strict government-enforced rules to keep their players in social bubbles and monitor their travel. Boli Bolingoli decided to breach these restrictions and take himself on a holiday to Spain, something he didn't inform the club about until after he had returned, which risked postponing or even cancelling the resumption of Scottish football altogether.
Manager Neil Lennon was absolutely furious after defender Boli Bolingoli admitted he breached COVID-19 rules, putting the rest of the Scottish Premiership season under serious threat. He flew to Spain, failed to quarantine on his return, and then played in a league game on Sunday, all without the club knowing. That came after 8 Aberdeen players had broken the rules. Both clubs' next 2 matches have been postponed, and Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said no further breaches would be tolerated.
As such, Bolingoli was allowed to leave the club on loan for the COVID season, and Celtic were on the hunt for Taylor's next challenger to the left-back throne. In came Diego Laxalt, a Uruguayan international of impressive pedigree, joining on a season-long loan from AC Milan. On paper, Laxalt was a big step up in quality from both Taylor and Bolingoli. Laxalt had impressed for Uruguay at the 2018 World Cup, where he made 5 appearances, and in the 2019 Copa America, where he once again made 5 appearances. In the early stages of the season, Lennon clearly favoured Laxalt in the big games, but regularly reverted to Taylor for domestic encounters. Laxalt wasn't particularly impressing, and Taylor was looking solid enough when he got the nod. Maybe it was the quality of opposition each were facing, or maybe it was the different expectation levels placed on each man. But as the months rolled on, the left-back role began to look more and more like it belonged to Greg Taylor. It's hard to properly judge any Celtic player on their performances in the COVID campaign, but ultimately, this was another round awarded to Taylor. In the summer of 2021, Ange Postecoglou was appointed Celtic manager, and it was at this point that Taylor's Celtic career really took off.
What's it been like since the new manager has come in? I mean, the most recent performance, of course, against Ferencváros from an attacking sense, but the full-backs are getting involved as attackers as well.
Yeah, exactly. No, I enjoyed it, certainly the start of the season. I had a good 2-3 months under the new manager and loved it. Really enjoyed his way of playing. Feel it suits my game coming inside, and it's something I've enjoyed and can't wait to get back out and be a part of.
Taylor perfectly suited how the Australian manager wanted to play. The inverted fullback role seemed to fit Taylor so much better than the more traditional overlapping fullback role Celtic teams had been used to in years prior. His form impressed so much that in November 2021, Taylor was awarded with a new 4-year contract at the club. Under the management of Ange, Taylor became a key player for Celtic and helped facilitate so much of Celtic's play with his impressive passing from the middle of the park. He may never have been particularly spectacular, but he was consistently solid. Ange left Celtic in 2023 and would later go on to name-check Taylor when listing the most influential players during his spell at the club, stating the following when asked if he'd ever had an excellent fullback/playmaker prior to his time at Spurs. Yeah, it was at Celtic where Greg Taylor was very influential. But all this isn't to say that Taylor didn't still come in for a share of criticism, and you have to say it wasn't entirely unfounded. Taylor's lack of pace and height, standing 5'7", would mean he was regularly targeted by long balls from opposition teams. Put a player taller than Taylor on him, and Taylor would essentially never come out on top. In European competition in particular, Taylor's shortcomings were frequently exposed. In the age of data analysis, Celtic's opponents could see Taylor had glaring weaknesses, and so often goals Celtic would concede in the Champions League would come down the left-hand side. Even as a fan of Taylor's, Ange could see a potential problem. He would bring in Argentinian left-back Alexander Bernabei to challenge Taylor, but this was another pretender to the throne Taylor swept away in the end with relative ease.
Por lo que escuché es una locura, como se dice en Argentina, y no veo la hora de poder estar ahí adentro y ver lo que es Celtic, que es grande.
With Brendan Rodgers back as manager at the club in the summer of 2023, the style of play changed. Rodgers reverted back to a setup with fullbacks expected to bomb up and down the park, so Taylor once again came in for much scrutiny. But still, he remained first choice and would dismiss 2 further challengers during a stay at Parkhead. Both Alex Bailly and Jeffrey Schlupp were unable to upstage Taylor and remove him permanently from the starting 11. When fans were angry with Taylor following a particularly dreadful performance against Rangers in the League Cup final and began to sing Kieran Tierney's name during the following league match, Brendan Rodgers would angrily speak out in defence of Taylor in the press.
Speaking of fans, there was a few singing the name of Kieran Tierney at the end there.
Aye, total lack of respect.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Get Greg Taylor. He's been absolutely amazing at this club. How does he feel? He's playing, nearly breaks his nose, bleeding for the club, for the cause. I'm more worried about the players that are here. It's not very respectful. You sing for another player, no matter what Kieran's history is. I don't like that.
This was, in truth, an odd statement from Rodgers. He had essentially confirmed Tierney would be returning to Celtic in a press conference just days before, and even hinted there was a chance it could happen in that transfer window instead of the pre-contract agreement it's ended up being. It was inevitable fans would sing the name of the returning hero in this scenario, and even at the end of the statement, Rodgers pointing out the criticism of Taylor's low-quality performances in the Champions League was odd. It was all coming to a head. Celtic offered Greg Taylor a new contract to stay, but ultimately he's chosen not to sign it. And that decision should be respected. He can see the arrival of Kieran Tierney will, likely, once and for all, finally see him relegated to the backup left back some sections of the support always felt he should have been. In his best spells, Taylor was a good player for Celtic, particularly under Ange. It would be unfair to try and claim he was a walking calamity who didn't deserve to wear the jersey. He had his low points and dips in form, but he always gave his all for the cause. His time at the club has came to an end, but he can be proud of himself for how often he stood up to the many challenges he faced during his 6 years at Celtic.